Hey, how's it going, guys? Domino21 here, and back again with yet another updated deck profile for you all, as requested by a lot of you viewers out there. So of course, as you guys see here, I have my Dauntless The End deck, version 2.0 that is. So ever since my first version of this deck a little while back, this deck has been going, through a few changes and adjustments and such according to how the competitive scene in Vanguard was at the time. And while I really did like my first version of the deck, I felt like some changes did have to be made. And what I really like about this version for this deck that I've been working on, I definitely feel like this deck does have a much clearer focus, and it's a lot more consistent at what it's supposed to be doing by design. So really happy with this build, and of course, Conroe in general and the end itself will always have some kind of influence on the competitive scene in Vanguard. He's always going to be a very competitive deck in my opinion. So yeah, without further ado, let's actually get to it. So first off, for starters, you have your Lizard Soldier Conroe. I mean, I say it all the time, he's one of the best starters in the game. There's a reason why Japan hit this card. Hopefully he doesn't get hit in English here, but yeah, let's hope not for all my Conroe players out there. But yeah, definitely got to run the Conroe. Too amazing not to. And then for grade 3s, you have your 4 Dauntless Dragons. Just a reminder for you guys who don't know, for those of you who don't know what he does, when you ride a grade 3 Conroe on top of him, you Vanguard gains plus 10,000, and at the end of battle, the Vanguard attacks. You discard three Conroes from your hand, doesn't matter which, and you restand the Vanguard, doesn't lose Twin Drive. So it's pretty much it makes anything a restanding Vanguard. So what I really like about Dauntless Dragon compared to the more traditional cross-ride version of the end is that Dauntless Dragon just gives you access to some pretty good power plays, especially late game, that the cross-ride version kind of lacked. And while, I mean, this version here does lack the 13k defensive power, I feel like the fact is that you can get a restanding Vanguard in Dauntless Dragon is definitely a lot more worth it, and it allows you just to really give a big push back at your opponents when, of course, most decks now are equipped to make big pushes at you as well. So the cross-ride version I really do like, but it can get outpaced a lot most of the time. So Dauntless Dragon can definitely get you back in the game, and it's another way to help wear your opponent out of their key defensive cards, so that once they're worn down, then you can go in for the kill with the end. So I mean, we all know what the end does. He's just very, very powerful. So he can definitely be very devastating to get off this Persona Blast late game after your opponent's dealing with Dauntless a few times. So definitely a very killer combination. And then next up for grade 2s, you have your 4 Berserk Dragons. Now, I know a lot of people will instantly say that 4 Berserk's too much, yada yada, you have to reserve Counterblast for the end, yada yada, but the idea with the Berserk Dragon is you run 4 because he's just a very impactful card. I mean, especially drawing him early game, just to be able to disrupt your opponent's field while they're trying to assemble theirs, can definitely be very impactful for them, very annoying for them as well. But that's a main reason why you run the 4 Berserk Dragons. And plus, really, like, for the most part, if I'm just trying to wear my opponent down with Dauntless first, I just have a lot of room and flexibility in my Counterblast before I actually attempt to Persona Blast with the end. So the playstyle is a little bit more, it's a little bit different, and for that reason, it gives you more flexibility to actually, abuse your Berserk Dragons. So definitely love it at 4. And the fact is that now I am running 4 Bellocosity Dragons, which of course is the damage on flipper for Conroe if it hits Vanguard. It allows, the Counterblast is definitely a lot easier to maintain now. So with the combination of 4 Berserk Dragons and 4 Bellocosity Dragons, it just creates such a strong mid-game for this deck. Where, I mean, obviously, if you ride Bellocosity Dragon, you obviously get Conroe off for free. But, I mean, let's say maybe your opponent tries to rush you or crits you too early, you get 3 Counterblasts. Well, if you ride Bellocosity, you obviously get Conroe for free. And also at the same time, you can get a Berserk Dragon for the cost of Counterblast 1. So you can definitely, punish a lot of players who try to rush you too early. So really, really good. And Bellocosity, I feel like, is really good at 4. Just because I really want him to actually unflip damage for me as opposed to just gaining pressure. Because if you just run like just a few, I mean, he's very easy to block and your opponent can easily just get him off the field, and then now you won't see one for the rest of the game pretty much. So running 4 increases your chances not only to open him, to ride him turn 2, but also, I mean, if you constantly keep calling these and keep, you know, wailing at your opponent with these, you just have a much better chance of these actually going off. So very, very strong to run at 4. And then you're running 3 Burning Horn Dragons. I am contemplating actually cutting these and playing Nahams, just because I felt Nahams are a lot more consistent. And I mean, the fact is I am still running 8Ks in this deck. I mean, I'll have an easier way to hit cross rides. But I mean, either or is still fine. I mean, Burning Horn's still pretty good late game when you're sitting on the end to try and hit some good numbers, good easy numbers, especially against cross rides or even by himself against 11K Vanguard. So still like the Burning Horns. And then grade 1s, of course, you have your 4 Bahr. Bahrs are just really, really amazing in general. I mean, he looks really badass, so that's why I say he's like the best 8K vanilla. But a couple things with Bahr is, one, you know, since 11K Vanguards are still very relevant, you can easily make a column with himself to create 16K rows, which is really ideal. And he can definitely get there in terms of hitting some key numbers. You know, like for instance, maybe it's late game and you're sitting on the end as your Vanguard. You could put him behind your Vanguard and he swings for 19, which is really good just to try and either force out 20,000 shield for 2 pass on any 9K or less rear guard your opponent calls out, or give you a better chance of hitting Persona Blast. So it's really good for really hitting those key numbers. And obviously he's a good defensive card to ride turn 1 so your opponent doesn't beat you up with their 7K boosters. So yep, 4 Bahrs. 4 Bahris, obviously 4 Perfect Guards, nothing much else there. 3 Gojos. I like the 3 Dragonmon Gojo, just a really strong card to open with, just to obviously, you know, fix any bad hands, prevent misgrading, and just continue cycling through your hand. And, you know, the whole idea with the deck, of course, is just to get as much draw power as possible to try and get to the end, just to try and get to your Persona Blast. So it's very important to do that, and he's a 7K booster at the same time, which is good. And then 2 Kerseys. When you call them on rearguard circle and your opponent has a grade 2 and or Vanguard and or rearguard, discard and draw. Kersey is just fine at 2 because he kind of is not really good when you open with him. Like Gojo's a much better card to open with, so 2 is perfectly fine. And then you have the 1 Aermo, of course. I mean, the main search target for Conroe. So essentially, it's good to have 6 draw cards in the deck for consistency. So a couple things to address. Now, 1, I don't play the Steel Dragon engine anymore, which consisted of, you know, running corduroys and running other Steel Dragon cards. One thing I didn't like about corduroy is just a lot of times it just benefited my opponent more often times than not, or it wasn't as disruptive as I wanted. While taking out boosters at the cost of 1 counterblast is always going to be good, a lot of times I end up getting punished by my other opponent's on-call skills, such as, you know, like a few times testing, I actually was able to set up Silver Thorns a lot easier. I got hit by a Blasted Dark Revenger, and actually one time, which is why I don't suggest using Corduroy against Eradicators, is my opponent had a Gauntlet Buster Dragon sitting at 4 damage, and he ended up just getting a Choho off, and Gauntlet Buster ended up getting the plus 3K to sit at 14, so it was pretty annoying. So Corduroy I felt didn't benefit me as much, so I felt like just running Berserk Dragons and Bellocosity Dragons were a lot better. Because Berserk Dragon is just really the superior card, giving those guaranteed kills and +1s. So that's really my main thing with the Steel Dragon engine. And also with my grade 1 lineup, I don't play I don't play Heat Nails or Kimnars anymore, because as I discussed with some other my other Kagero player friends, is that, you know, just 1-for-1 removals is not really worth it as much anymore, because especially with decks like Liberators, Silver Thorns, Revengers and such, which they can just tutor to their field pretty much for free and in +1s, a lot of times you just minus yourself using Kimnar and Heat Nail on them, so a lot of times you're just hurting yourself as opposed to them. So so it's just better to put cards in this deck that allow you to be more consistent with the focus of the deck, which of course is just getting your Dauntless drives, wearing your opponent down with it, and getting that Persona Blast off. Running 4 Berserk Dragons in here already gives you all the removal that you can use. And like I said, Berserk Dragon is just a much better removal card to use in general. So that's that, because I'm sure a lot of you guys will ask me about that. And then triggers, you just run the 7 crit, keep the variety going so your opponent can't guess ratios, 5 draw, and 4 heals. So 7 crit, 5 draw is always going to be a very balanced number. Just gives you just enough crits you need for this deck, which is very beneficial, and just enough draw power just to give you some more discard fodder for your draw cards. But yeah, guys, that is my Dauntless Drive The End deck for you all. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below with any questions and such that you may have. And don't forget to definitely give a thumbs up to this video. I definitely always appreciate that. And also, be sure to subscribe to my channel if you hadn't already. So, once again, guys, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Later.